Welcome back to the Gun Channel. Today's video is actually going to be a video podcast. It's called Pewjitsu, the art of never losing. You either win or you learn. This podcast is put on by Anthony DiSarro, and I have no doubt it's going to be huge. This was a test run he and I put on, and we figured, hey, there might be some value in it for somebody out there. So maybe that's you. Without further ado, here's the very first Pewjitsu podcast.
Well, it's been a long time coming, Mike, but this is going to be a ball.
Yes, Pewjitsu Podcast.
The Pujitsu Podcast. So as I sit across the table in this newly constructed podcast studio here at Tradecraft Range, I am sitting here with my very good friend, Mike Pick from Evoke Studio, a guy who I've learned an amazing amount from in a very short time that I've known him, found inspiration in what he does, and also in his outlook on life, the way he approaches things. And it is an absolute pleasure and honor to know him and to be sitting here with these microphones in our faces looking really cool.
Yeah, speaking of our microphones here, we just literally ran all these cables like 8 seconds ago, and we're trying to get video at the same time. We've never done this before, so this should be exciting, and I'm sure nothing will go wrong.
I feel spoiled that we have a mic and camera set up and lights here in the studio. This is looking like a very legit studio.
So big question, why did you start the Pewjitsu podcast? Like,
it is a big question, and it's one I keep asking myself because
you're gonna ask yourself that a year from now. It's like, why the hell did I start?
I don't particularly like the limelight really, but I think that I've started to enjoy sharing on a broader scale, sharing in more open areas, and because you and I have talked about this before through text and in person, that have a little syndrome, where I don't particularly feel like I should be an expert on anything or a subject matter expert. But this medium of the podcast seems like such a really wonderful way to get your word out, to get conversation started. It could be comedy, it could be serious. And that's kind of like the overarching theme. So to kind of circle back, I did a podcast a few months back with a friend of mine who I worked in law enforcement with. It was a very simple thing, and we had a good time doing it. And that really kind of turned me on to podcasts. So now I listen to the podcast of some sort pretty much every day, and I love the medium, and I think it's very approachable. I think the idea of sitting across from someone and just having this conversation and letting it go wherever, let the mics run, is a really cool thing. I think it's a good way to get to know people.
So you sent me a video this morning of you and Nick shooting a 50. Was it a 50 cal
50
rifle?
Yeah, yesterday.
What was that all about? I looked at my text messages and I see you in the prone position.
We have an armory here at Tradecraft Range, and in that armory are probably 30 AR-15 style rifles, an equal number of handguns. And then there's a secondary cabinet in there with a bunch of really amazing shotguns. And this 50 cal is leaning in there, a full-on Barrett 50 cal. So Nick brought it out one day, says, "Does this thing work?" And I don't know. I think there might be a problem with the recoil system or something or whatever. So he's like, "I'm going to test it." Well, there's ammunition. Go right ahead. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, we're out on the range, proned out. And we squeezed off 5 rounds out of this 50 just to make sure it ran like a champ. A couple little minor hiccups that we'll iron out, but it was fun.
We should tell people where we're at. We're at Tradecraft Range, which is this, an outdoor shooting range with multiple different crazy bays between rifle and pistols. Yep. It's sitting on the middle of over 1,000 acres, and it has an armor,y and it's also married up to Force IMI, which is another
Force IMI and Force Center. And this is sort of my home away from home. I'm an owner of Tradecraft Range. I work here. I play here. And it's a pretty impressive place. No matter where you look at it from, 30,000 foot view all the way down to right inside one of our rifle bays, pistol bays. It's a pretty cool place.
So I know you touched base on like why you started the podcast. You have It kind of reminds me of, I know you don't want to be in the limelight and you just want to, you're typically a supporter, and I find you to be a person that just judge me by my actions. Don't worry about it. Just step back. I'm going to do this, and then it's going to all work out. And it always seems to me, it's like that typical old saying is like the person that doesn't want to be in charge probably should be in charge, especially if they have all the quality traits. But also, I listened to you on that podcast you mentioned earlier, and you were like phenomenal on it. And I was like, holy shit, he should do his own podcast. When I heard you talking, you're like, really? I'm like, yeah, for sure. But you also have access to so many people because, you're former law enforcement, retired, I should say. And I'm sure over the many podcasts, you'll get into that. And you partnered up, you have your own gun range, your partnership with a gun range. And, you also have a fitness gym. What was that called?
Yeah, I owned a CrossFit gym for almost 12 years. It was called CrossFit Redline, and then we transitioned away from like the big group fitness into more personalized program design, and then that was called OPEX Naples. It was a very boutique style fitness facility, but I sold that about I guess 2.5, almost 3 years ago now. So yeah, my circle has changed quite a bit, but in a lot of ways, my circles still overlap each other. So I still have a lot of commonality.
Now, you were one of the first CrossFit gyms in the Naples area, were you not?
Yeah, we were the first. Yeah, first in Naples, one of the first in like southern Florida. It was 2008 when I opened the CrossFit facility, so it was in its infancy then, so we were pretty early adopters. So we got in there very early in the game.
I don't know who's interviewing here, but we're just swinging it.
No, well, I'm going to take the ball for just a few. And this first podcast, like we talked about, was just a way to get ourselves out there. I wanted to hit record for the very first time on all this cool gear that we've got here. Get the nerves out a little bit. Yeah. And so I'll kind of turn things back on you so that people can start to know who you are. So Evoke Studio, it's plainly on your shirt. And if anybody knows me, follows our Instagram page, I tag Evoke Studio and like all these beautiful photos. So tell us about Evoke Studio and what it is that you do and how it came about, because you don't do this alone.
Yeah, no, of course not. So Evoke Studio is Jessica and I, we're partnered up. We met about, 5 years ago, and we were both photographers, probably mostly portrait photographers, and I had also gotten pretty heavy in the video because I was just trying to pay my bills. Not only, am I cutting up on your end?
No, you sound great.
Probably a hard line connection here. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Let's see here. Wires, cables.
What else is
new? So I was shooting photography and doing videography, and I was a full-time musician, and I wanted to transition out of that for various reasons. And then I met Jessica on Instagram, and she was also a portrait photographer, very good, very talented. We connected, did a couple of shoots together, and we had so much fun doing it. It was like we didn't want to go do photo shoots alone anymore because it was so much more fun doing it that way. And so we worked together in a pretty short amount of time, and then we said, hey, let's do this together. We opened up a little small studio in town and just kind of kept doing our thing, combining our forces. And then I would say fast forward a few years later, we are full-time wedding photographers, videographers. We actually created a production company kind of in the process, aka shooting like commercials for businesses in town that go to broadcast, things like that. And so that kind of summarizes, I think, with Evoke Studio. We have this really crazy van that Jessica bought. It's like it's insane. It cost about as much as a house, and it's kind of a house on wheels. And our vision is to drive across the country and all over the place and do what we love to do and sort of squeeze out. Retirement is kind of a weird thing, right? Wait till you're 65 and nothing works anymore, and then go live your life. So we're like trying to do the hybrid thing, raising our kids, traveling the country, doing what we love to do, and then sort of squeeze out, that travel vision, stuff like that in the process.
Right. And I've been a big fan of both of you guys since the first time you stepped foot in here into the facility, and we started chatting about taking pictures here on the property and doing some video work here on the property. And I think we hit it off really pretty quickly. We speak the same language in a lot of ways, and that whether that be through music or through photography or capturing video, and then in just some of our other life's travels are very, very similar. So we all hit it off very, very, very easily and very quickly.
Right, that's how we met. Was what did we? I was out here just shooting video of me shooting guns and my kids and Jess, and just having a blast. I'm like, and I had all this footage on my computer. And I can't really share it anywhere because if you have a gun, at the time of this recording, you could be I don't know.
Yeah.
Woke brigade
hesitate
to cancel me. So I was like, what do I do with all this? And then I reached out to you, and I started the gun channel. Oop, got a dead camera there. I reached out to you, and then started the gun channel on YouTube, which was just a way to sort of have fun during the pandemic. Everything kind of shut down. Yeah. And then you picked us up, and we did a couple of shoots for you, which was super fun. And that was awesome. Actually, speaking of which, you creating these, what is it called? Drill of the Week with you and Nick for starters. But it's pretty impressive what you do between your drone work and your camera work and stuff like that. Maybe tell people about the Drill of the Week and where they can find that. It's pretty fun. Yeah.
Similar to, how you kind of kicked off the gun channel out of, it wasn't necessary. You just I got some time to kill. I got some footage. I got this gear. I have a certain skill set, and I have some things I want to say. That's what we did. I love drones. I love it to the degree that I went and got my commercial drone license, and I've been flying drones for a number of years. So one that is almost always with me. I love the simplicity of mobile filmmaking, like using an iPhone to make a movie with a gimbal. And the Drill of the Week is something that Nick, who works here with us here at Tradecraft, and I put together as a way to, one, share some of the knowledge that we have around firearms and firearms manipulation and just, improving your shooting capabilities and general marksmanship. And also a way to introduce some low round count drills to our members or our followers. Ammunition's incredibly expensive right now. It's difficult to locate. So
when do you think that's going to clear up the ammo stuff?
I don't know. I don't see it changing anytime soon. We're going to have to change around it. So I know that I'm disciplined enough to know when I come out to the range that I need to have a plan if I'm going to get better, but I'm not sure how many people have that same mentality. So our plan was, hey, let's give them some simple drills that they can do out here with very low round count, maybe 10, 15, 20 rounds expended that'll really help them improve. So that's what we did. We started shooting these, 2, 3, 4 minute clips with a selected drill that we've talked about in the week prior. And we shoot them, we edit them, we put them together. We've got a little a gimbal set up. I fly my drone to grab some B-roll intro shots, and so far, we're at episode 4, so we've been doing them for a month. They've been incredibly well received. I'm overly thrilled, with the comments that we get, the number of views that we're getting. So people are definitely taking them, hopefully, and paying attention to them.
It's good. It's kind of like it reminds me of martial arts days. Sometimes you just want to go to the gym and just unplug and not have to create your own curriculum and do your own training, so you can just sort of have somebody else tell you what to do and then get creative after that if you want. Yeah,
and judging by the number of, if you go into your metrics on Instagram, you can see what people are doing, how many views, how many likes. We're seeing a lot of shares, and we're seeing a lot of people bookmark these drills. So that's a good indicator that people are using them to get better, and that that'll help us keep pushing them out there.
So at the end of the day, basically just trying to it is an interesting thing to have a wealth of information or something and then have so many people ask you, hey, how do I do this? What should I do? And it's kind of a complex conversation, and you almost need a video to explain it in a little bit of time. It's not like it's not a paragraph answer.
And these aren't meant, in no way are these meant to replace a proper class on firearms safety or fundamentals of handgun or anything like that. They're meant to, to serve one purpose, and that's give you a low round count drill with some instruction, with a video representation of what it could or should look like, and go for it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
we could do this for a long time because we both have a lot to say, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So before we dive too much more deeply into the pool of who we are and what this show is going to be about, I think the general overview of this podcast is going to be
me fixing this camera over here. Keep talking
fixing
while I
that
fix
camera.
this camera.
It's going to be just sort of us throwing some things out there. This is going to be a conversation-based podcast. I really am not going to have any kind of scripting going on in any way, shape, or form. We'll have some Q&A for some special guests when they come in because people want to know, but we're going to make it very conversational-based. Guns, sure, we're going to talk about guns. I'm an owner of a gun range, and we're doing it at a gun range, and there's probably a gun in the room. But it's not going to be all about guns or the Second Amendment or anything like that. We're going to talk about health.
So what kind of gun you got, man?
What
do you carry, man?
I'm not telling.
Ex-Navy SEAL shows what they carry every day.
We're going to talk, health and fitness and fun and alcohol, I'm sure. And we're going to talk about
Can we drink?
guns.
It's 12 o'clock. I mean, yeah, it's lunchtime.
Sure. And family and what it's like to be a spouse and a father, which both of us are, and a friend and adventure. And, we're going to chase some rabbits down rabbit holes. And I'm not going to be afraid to ask any questions in here. And that's important to me, that this has a wide open lens that we can talk to people. And we're not gonna script it out. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. And then secondarily, this place gets some pretty cool people come through, whether they're traveling instructors, coming to the facility to run a class, or people here that are important in some way or another. They're going to come through, and we're going to grab them. We're going to sit them down, throw them in front of a microphone, and we're going to get down to it. Even if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes, there's a bunch of people on my list that I want to talk to and sit down across from. And
who are some of those people, like either that just came through that wish you had this set up already?
Yeah, if I would have had this set up, a couple weeks
some
back,
that are coming up, even
I would have probably had Travis Haley and his instructors sit down with us. Those guys were phenomenal from the moment they walked in here. Josh and Jared.
What was different about them?
There's just something about guys that are truly subject matter experts and really pros in their craft. The way they talk, the way they deliver their information, you can tell that this stuff is it's hardwired into them. It's part of their psyche.
I looked on YouTube, as I was sort of working on getting my own skill set up, and like most people, they get on YouTube and they go around and get what they can off of there, and then come out and practice it. But you look back, and Travis Haley's got some stuff that's pretty. 9 years ago, he's on there talking, and some of the drills he talks about are just like, you can tell this dude. It's not his first rodeo.
Yeah, he's operating on another level. Mm-hmm. So guys like that for sure, and then local guys. There are people that I want to talk to here. One who I'm very excited to be able to do this with. He already agreed, and he does his own podcast too over at North Miami Beach, is Joaquin Valente from Valente Brothers Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, right.
They're one of the original families of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and this show is called the Pewjitsu Podcast, kind of for a reason, because I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was a practitioner. I instructed law enforcement in ground fighting for a while. So he's going to be a very awesome guest to have on here. And
how long did you roll for? How long did you take?
Well, like a lot of people, I saw the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Right. I think it was one that I saw was probably 96 or 7, when it was just kind of bare knuckles, and it was they were matchmaking back then. It was like boxer versus a wrestler. It was
there was like kung fu versus karate. That was so cool back then.
Yeah,
too.
The kung fu guy wore his.
They were trying to figure out what we're going to do with this. How do we pitch this?
There was a boxer who came in wearing one boxing glove. So it was very different back then. So I saw it then, and I was obviously very impressed, like the martial arts world was, by Gracie running amok over everyone.
Right, blew everybody's mind. This little wiry dude comes out and starts strangling these muscle-bound folks.
Incredible. So quickly, and back then there was VHS tapes. I bought the entire VHS tape collection of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu fundamentals, and then I found myself fortunate enough to be able to travel out to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Torrance, California. I did a program that I don't even know if it's around anymore. It's called Gracie Resisting Attack Procedures for Law Enforcement, which spells out grapple. So I spent some time out there with Royce and Rorion Gracie, and of course the father of modern Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Grandmaster Helio Gracie, and that's how it kind of all started, and it was amazing. So I rolled for a while, came back. We put together a curriculum with another BJJ guy that I know here, and we started teaching grapple and ground fighting to law enforcement here in Southwest Florida. And so it was a ton of fun, and I learned a lot from that time, and we shared a lot of insight.
That's great, especially for law enforcement, because, you guys are held to a different standard, and also what does it look like without somebody knowing the whole story? And you start hitting somebody, it doesn't look good. So be able to grab them and control the situation from a soft style, quote unquote.
Sure. Now we're talking, late 90s, early 2000s. Camera phones didn't have the advancements. They were flip phones, but now everybody's got a camera phone out and up and ready to fire off and live stream. And time equals brutality in a law enforcement engagement. So the longer you're fighting or struggling on the ground with somebody, the more opportunity cameras have to come on, and the more brutal it ends up looking, because now it's
probably the more brutal it has to be, because if it's continuing that long, then of course it's just only going to violence is going to have to escalate.
So having those simple, soft, air quote soft tools in your toolbox that you can pull out and make something stop very, very quickly is certainly handy. I'm a lifelong martial artist, as you know. I went down the rabbit hole with one system, which was Taekwondo and the Olympic style sparring, and I went really, really far with that. And then along the way, I picked up a little bit of jiu-jitsu, some Wing Chun, some Kung Fu stuff, Sayat Kali, the blade work stuff, and a couple other systems, Krav Maga. And because once I had that one Taekwondo and I got really good at it, and I had some success in the competition world, then other guys and gals would come to me and say, and then I would end up with other instructors from other schools, and we would just swap knowledge. And we started this mixed martial arts kind of a thing. And actually, I can go before that. This dude, John Schroeder from California, he lives in California now. We were doing mixed martial arts stuff with LEO, military guys, special forces guys in our gyms on Sundays, and we would just come up with some ridiculous stuff. And then UFC came around, like, what? Been doing this for years. What did we miss out on?
I'll have to say this, that I'm glad in a way that UFC wasn't as organized as it is now when I was competing, because I would have been in there getting beat up and having CTE and stuff like that.
Now you glossed over your competition experience. You said when I got into competition, but I don't think let's rewind that just a little bit and go into your competition experience, because it's extensive.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, and I got into when I was 13 or 14. I was in Texas, and I went to this martial arts school called the Academy of Martial Arts, and I saw some people kicking in there, and I don't know what the hell this is, but I got to do this. Mm-hmm. So I went in full-fledged. like 6 days a week, 3 classes a day. I did traditional Taekwondo, like a Jiu-Jitsu, which was more like a Japanese, I think, more of a traditional Jiu-Jitsu. It wasn't like a BJJ.
Right.
It was still good, but nothing like these guys are doing today, and probably what you did. And then sport Taekwondo, which is Olympic-style sparring. At today's date, at 2021, the Olympic-style sparring of Taekwondo is, I don't want to speak negatively about it, but it's a different thing. It's more of an electronic sport thing. It looks more like karate to me, like a point karate type thing, than it was back in the day when I was doing it in the 90s heavily, and it was much harder hitting.
Yeah, in the 90s, Taekwondo was at its at a real peak. I mean, movies were coming out about it. It was on the cover of every magazine.
Probably what BJJ is today is what Taekwondo was in the 90s. And then just like anybody else, I would train my butt off, and I was in a gym, San Carlos Taekwondo, which had a ton of just really talented fighters, and the boyers that ran that school predominantly were just really pushed us really hard. So they kind of relied on talent and just constant training. And then we would travel over the state and all over the country, and we would train. And then I was lucky enough that they ended up selling the gym to a dude named Angel Razamandi, who trained at the Olympic Training Center with Hanwha Lee, who was the Olympic Training Center official coach for the Olympic team for Taekwondo. So we had all that, the sort of the chess game got brought in, and the training mentality, a little bit of nutrition came in. So started to get real good going from checkers to chess. You know, just trying to live off of talent is not enough, right?
For those who maybe, for anyone who may find this first episode and listen, that
we're sorry,
is not it doesn't know what Taekwondo is or looks like. It is super athletic and really, really dynamic. Can you kind of give us a glossing over of the differences? If somebody knows traditional karate with wide horse dances, right, and give us a...
I guess starting like at a helicopter view would be like what boxing is for punching, is what Taekwondo is for kicking. So you can imagine, it's like, hey, we wanted to get really kick-ass at punching, so let's make a sport, and we won't kick each other. We can't, we're just going to make this sport designed to make you get really great at punching, and really similar to that to Taekwondo. And then so Taekwondo is full contact to the body and to the head while standing up, and you can punch full contact to the body but not to the face. And so it sort of takes, if you take martial arts like a pie and you take a little slice out of it, you pull, and then by the time you have all these little martial arts that you put together, all these slices to the pie, if you put everything together, it's just kind of called martial arts, right? And that's what Taekwondo did for that. So it was just really getting great at kicking. The beautiful thing about it is it was full contact. So really similar, again, back to BJJ, is like, if you think you've got a great idea, great, let's do it. Or you think that whatever I'm saying is not valid in context, is like, or if you have a clever idea that you think will work, but as soon as you apply force to it and power to it, it'll completely eliminate a more clever idea. But anyway, getting off the rails, it's about kicking. You're typically on like a 20-meter squared floor, and you're sparring against another dude for 3 rounds, or another gal, depending on what you're into. And he or she with the most points wins. If you knock the other person out, you win. At least in the adult divisions, the kids divisions can be different. That's the sport Taekwondo that I'm talking about.
Excellent.
And so, full contact, and you get a little bit of taste of that primal thing. I'm in the ring with somebody else, and they're literally, I'm at the Olympic Training Center or U.S. Nationals or states or whatever it is, and we're both literally trying to knock each other out. We might even be friends. How weird that can be, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Been there for sure. Very, very cool.
And so at the height of that, I guess to wrap that up would be, did a lot of state training, did really well at a state level, won many times as a black belt, state level, did okay at a national level, at a color belt on my way up. And then towards the end there, I did win a trip to Brazil with the U.S. team, and we fought against the Brazilian team, and that was a whole different story. Maybe we can get into another time.
Yes,
that's
for sure.
And when I got back from that, I'm like, okay, I'm at the top of my game. I'm like in the best shape of my life, and I feel like I could beat almost anybody, whether that's true or not, But I realized is like I had to sacrifice so much in order to get there, my relationships and my careers. And I was getting into my late 20s, and my good friend Charlie and I would talk about, like, jokingly, we're like, well, good thing we didn't get to a sport that actually paid money, like golf or tennis or something. We're in this crazy sport, Taekwondo, which is like all personal glory and no like actual income, at least the way I did it.
Right. Well, we're gonna have a whole bunch of talks like this. We're gonna go into depth, hopefully, on more about your competition years, and now your personal endeavors and professional endeavors with Evoke Studios, because you guys do some sick work for us. I think this is like our fourth skirmish you just shot, third or fourth.
The tactical games,
The tactical games.
Well, real quick, same thing. Like, if somebody just found this. What is the tactical games?
Yeah,
and what's the skirmish?
The tactical games, something that is near and dear to me and my heart. And so if you think about, this is my elevator pitch for the tactical games, and I get asked it all the time. It's a combination of a strongman event, a obstacle course race, functional fitness mixed with a 2-gun competition, and the 2 guns being pistol and rifle. It's all done with a plate carrier on, or for those who don't know what a plate carrier is, it looks like a bulletproof vest essentially. And it has men and women of all ages and shapes and calibers and stations in life, running and gunning and picking up heavy sandbags and going over walls and crawling and shooting complex courses of fire.
It has like a CrossFit.
It's got a very much,
but it's not.
It's got a real CrossFit kind of lean to it. Of course, it's just by the nature of it. It is popular with law enforcement, military types. But those types don't make up the bulk of the competitors. The bulk of the competitors are everyday people, teachers and doctors and pilots and firefighters. And it's a ton of fun. And I've been involved with it now for a little over a year, both as a competitor, as an on-the-field kind of a battle boss, admin sort of guy for 2-day tactical games events, and then as an orchestrator of 1-day events that are called skirmish, and we do them here at Tradecraft Range. We've had you and Jessica become our official photographers and videographers for them, and people I've already gotten to know you guys. You're part of the community as far as I'm concerned.
Oh man,
they request you by name, like, oh, is Evoke going to be there? Yes. Okay, well, I'm signing up because they know, Monday, Tuesday, following the Saturday event, that they're going to have an inbox of several hundred amazing, or in this case, 1,000 amazing pictures of them looking super badass. When else do you get to see yourself in that regard? We have so much fun doing the photos for that. And actually, to people, anybody wants to get more into what the Tactical Games is, on the Gun channel, we've done a couple of videos on it. So if you dig around on the Gun channel on YouTube, that you'll see some interview stuff like that and what's going on. Yeah, the Gun channel, which I still, every time you say that you have a YouTube channel called the Gun Channel, how you got that, how it wasn't already taken, just is mind blowing to me. So yeah, the Gun Channel, just as it sounds on YouTube, is your little baby, and it grew early on and during this COVID situation. You needed something to do. I think you just needed an outlet. Yeah. And it's grown like massively quickly. It's amazing. Every time I log on to go see the newest video, I look at that little spot where it says followers or subscriptions.
Right, it's going up like 1,000 a month or something
constantly. So yeah,
it's really cool.
It's really great to see it grow. And as this podcast grows, it can also be a place for people to go find the podcast, because we're going to do some cross-pollination of things, you and I and Jess, and there'll be some podcast action happening over on the Gun Channel.
Yeah, I love how this is coming together, because it's like we have a really good idea what we want it to feel like, and we're just kind of going at it. And I, at least for me, I like to analyze stuff until it's perfect, and then I'll launch it. And I imagine you can definitely relate to that as well. And this is definitely out of our comfort zone, where there are wires all over the table, and we're like, you know what, we just kind of need to start it, and then we have a basic idea where we're going to go. But yeah, a lot of cross-pollination, but...
Yeah, you and I were going to meet yesterday, and we were going to do something like this, and then plans changed, and then
I went to the beach with my kids instead,
which is amazing. You can cancel on me anytime for that. And then this morning I was home, and I really didn't have any intention of coming out to do this today.
Right on.
But I couldn't stop thinking about hitting this button, this record button, and I couldn't stop thinking about this setup. And I was like, okay, shit, I'm just going to go out there. And I'm going to do the bare minimum. And I dropped you a text, and you're like, hey, man, I'll meet you there at 11:30. Yeah. So I said, well, we're doing a show today, man. Let's get after it. And so here we are. We are actually doing a show.
Assuming we hit record, right, and all that stuff.
I think it's recording. We're 33 minutes into this conversation.
We're going to Joe Rogan style. We'll be like 8 hours. No.
Yeah. We got stuff to do. You have to go out and go to the bathroom and get some food.
Back to the skirmish show. Speaking of the show.
Yeah.
The skirmish is like, so there's the Tactical Games, which is run by the big organization. A lot of times they're 2-day events, and the skirmishes are run by affiliates like yourself. And it's hard to keep track of this stuff.
You're doing great.
And it's 1-day events. Jessica and I at Evoke Studio has been involved with doing the photos and a little bit of video for you. Thanks for having us out to do that.
course.
We love it when you bring us out for that. And I've noticed over the last 3 or 4 skirmishes that you've started to like add your own particular flair to it, and especially this last one, like where it's like brain games came out and practical, tactical. So tell me what your thoughts were on maybe on this last skirmish of how you created it and designed it, and where you think you might want to go with your specific style of skirmish.
I've done enough of them at this point that people will send me messages. They'll ask questions, and I listen to the consumer. I listen to the customer, and some of them had said, "Hey, are these going to be really hard again? Is this going to be really? Are we going to run 5 miles again?
Like hard, like 200-pound barbells over your head."
Yeah,
right?
and there's a place for testing that. There's a place for testing the best with a 200-pound sandbag or heavier, or a 12-mile ruck or whatever. Look, at the elite levels of this sport, you sacrifice the right to ask questions about how heavy or how far, and that is the fact of the matter. Mm-hmm. If you punch the elite button, don't ask, just do. At the one-day skirmish, however, these are people who are maybe just dipping their toe in the water. Some of these folks borrowed gear to come try it for the first time because they want to become part of something bigger, or they're just looking for the next thing in their life. And I want to make sure that we cover all of our bases. And so I could easily throw a bunch of battles, what we call the workouts are called battles in the tactical games world. I could smash them pretty easily and have people, puking and not able to advance on the course. But I don't think that has an overall great representation of the sport. So we did something a little different this time around, and I borrowed some ideas from my time in SWAT, and we did some portions that made them think their way through. They had to really identify the target that we were asking them to shoot. In one case, we had an ammo can where we locked up their pistol magazines. They were shown for 30 seconds a combination for a lock on that ammo can, like an old school PE locker.
The twisty kind, you have to roll it left.
Roll it right, left, right, and go past the numbers and all that. They had to remember this while we were giving them a bunch of physical work to do. Then come back and under duress, open that lock and get your magazines out. And inside with their magazines was a written description of the course of fire, how many rounds, and where we expected those rounds to hit. So we hit all the bases with physical and mental, and we had to calm them down. And we saw people struggle with that lock.
For sure. Like
flew through it.
Taking the photos of that, and I was like, man, this is just really visualizing what they're going to and what they look like. Even open this up with hard. There's a bunch of different kinds of definition for hard.
Yeah.
And you definitely did that, and you kept the round count really low, which was beautiful at the last skirmish, and the fun was really high. And I like the idea, almost like, for pulling from my background, the analogy of like, there's got to be a way for people to get to the elite area, almost like a martial arts thing, like a white belt to color belt to black belt. Yeah. And so that pathway is there. And your background with your law enforcement, your training yourself, training other people, and all the people that you mix up with, all the active military and former military, and then for you to be in a position to create these events. I think there's probably a lot of people that really enjoy it, but don't get how fortunate they are to have somebody like you programming the events.
Well, I do feel responsible to make sure that the skirmish events, the one-day events, are as inclusive as possible. I don't want anybody to get turned away at the end of a skirmish and saying, that was just too damn hard. I could easily do that, but that's not going to help the growth of the sport. That's not going to help the growth of these people. And I think that there's a tremendous amount of growth from this kind of sport, this kind of activity. I personally experienced it because I left law enforcement, I left SWAT, and I'd sold my gym business. There was a kind of a big hole going on in where I was in life, and I think I just stumbled upon the tactical games. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember how. Actually, I think I found a video from Ben Brown from Wise Men Company. It was on YouTube, and Ben did a really great job covering his experience with the tactical games. I said, man, this looks like a hell of a lot of fun. So, and this is going to be another conversation for another podcast day. I wasn't in the firearms industry prior to finding the tactical games. I was in law enforcement and I was in the fitness business. Long story short, now I'm neck deep in the firearms industry. I am an owner at a gun range. I work with shooters and law enforcement and military and tactical athletes on a daily basis. So there's a tremendous amount of growth that came personally for me by entering the first tactical games. So like I said, I feel responsible to the people that trust me with their day, their time, their money, and their possible experience to make sure that day that they come to skirmish, they feel included, they feel capable, and that when they leave, they're inspired to come back.
Yeah, coming from my perspective, you invited us out to photograph the event, and I was like, "What is this?" And I as I watched it, and I'm like, "Holy crap! How did I not know about this? Because this is too much. This looks like way too much fun." And I think it's going to be. I think whenever I talk to people about it, they've never heard of it either. So I think as the word gets out and the message gets out, it's going to be a huge. It's already big,
yeah.
But I think it's at its infancy. So it'd be really exciting to see where it actually leads and goes. And some of my takeaways from my initial impressions was, I can't believe you can have this many people and have it keep it safe, because there's a deadly weapon involved. But once I see the way you run your events, and I'm sure many others that run their versions of the tactical games, that like your lockbox, ammo's locked up until you're near the firing line, and your volunteers are next level. The people that stick, you got one person that sticks with the competitor, they run with them oftentimes, and they're there watching them like a hawk.
Yeah, safety is paramount, obviously, and it's not just one deadly weapon. If there's 50 competitors, there's 100 guns, because they're carrying 2 guns each. So, knock wood, we've not had any injuries. We haven't had an issue that would even raise a flag for us. And that's one, because our competitors are doing a great job. They're being safe. 2, our volunteers are amazing in every way. They really are the superpowers of pulling off a competition like this. And without them, we just can't do it. And then, I do spend a lot of time developing these battles to make sure that they're moving with empty guns. We empty all firearms at, in appropriate directions. And I try to keep them as safe as possible. And so far, that triumvirate there has all been working quite well. And we've been very safe.
I've also noticed too, it's like just like if anybody's been around guns, as soon as you get a firearm and you start to take it any kind of seriousness, and you start visiting gun ranges, things like that, then you're very mindful of how you're manipulating the weapon, even if you're new. And then my understanding of the gun culture, especially out here at Tradecraft, is we're all sort of watching each other, because I want you to holler at me. If I do something stupid, I want you to go, boom, I want you to knock it out of me, and I won't take it personal. It's like, no, this is important. I want to be called out if I make a mistake, or definitely violate some sort of safety rule. But
the firearms industry is an interesting one. The shooting field is interesting in that, I think it's 50-50. Some people don't want to say anything. They don't want to be nosy bodies. And then you have the others who are more than happy to call you out on your shit if they catch you. So in every case, whether it's, out on the skirmish day, or if it's when we're rolling cameras doing the Tradecraft drill of the week, we have to make sure we're above board in all aspects.
What are the biggest questions you get about the skirmish? Like you said, you get a lot of questions. Like what would be like the top 3, or something that comes to your mind that's the most common one?
Well, the absolute most common one is usually gear based.
Me too.
Not everybody has a plate carrier or a belt setup, a battle belt setup. Maybe they have a basic carry holster, but they're not sure about how to go about setting up their gear to be able to compete in a day or a weekend long event. So certainly equipment. And then just like in the fitness industry, and I heard it, if I had a nickel for every time I heard, I'm going to get in shape and then I'll come and visit your gym. Mm-hmm. Look, if you could get in shape on your own, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So, so we do hear that, I'm not in shape enough to come out and do the tactical games or a skirmish. Well, you don't know that, because I changed the programming for every single one. This one had a slightly dialed down fitness component, and it turned up mental acuity component. That would have been a perfect one for that person who thought, oh, I can't do this because I'm not fit enough.
So you would, essentially you would need, go back to that gear real quick. You need a rifle, a handgun, and a good holster.
Yep.
And then also a plate carrier or it doesn't have to be a plate carrier. Can it just be a chest rig?
It doesn't have to be a plate carrier per se with a front and back panel. It could be just a chest rig as long as it meets the requirements, the weight requirements, and that's 15 pounds for men and 12 for ladies. But I will tell you, if you don't have one and you really want to compete, there are more than enough people out here that was like, hey, use mine, just borrow mine. Here you go.
Well, it's a nerd industry where we love what we do and think it's so cool. And if anybody comes in and wants to do it, you would probably have 8 people. Hey, here's my rifle. Here's an extra rifle. Use mine. We're going to be in different divisions, whatever.
Yeah, no question at all. So really, all the questions that we get are generally centered around, am I fit enough to do this? And what are the gear requirements? And spectators are free. You can come out if you're not sure. Just come out and watch one. Stand next to me or stand next to one of our judges and ask questions. You'll see every shape and size and type of person run through this, especially here when we host them at Tradecraft. So it's an amazing community without question. And there's more than enough people to lend you gear, to share their gear insights, show you how they set up theirs for success, and so we can overcome any of those questions.
And I will say on that thought pattern, I've been wanting to do it, but I've had some medical stuff come up. I've barely taken aspirin for the first 40 years of my life, and then now this last couple of years, I just got hit because it is what it is sometimes, and so stabilizing my physical condition and stuff, I really want to get into it, and the direction you're going, and I know there's different divisions you can get into, so there is a path for me to get in there and do what I can do, and especially if I don't have ego, then I don't have to worry about time stuff, and I'll just go out there and have fun, which is hard for me to do, but I'll take it. And I know that you are moving in that direction to where even more so, opening up that spectrum for even more different kinds of folks at different phases of their training can enter into something like the skirmish. And then you and I, we're kicking around the idea of even like a backpack thing, which could be like a day pack or an overnight pack that might have protection in it, a warmth, shelter, water, maybe a little stove in it. And then I think that would be really fun. And so I'm really looking forward to maybe bringing that into it over here the next 6 months or so.
Yeah, without tipping our hand too much as what it is that we've been talking about. I think you did it just perfectly well. Sitting across from me on the couch here in the studio is a backpack that's mine, and inside of it is a holster setup and an extra magazine, and so we could easily have a required
50
loadout,
a 50 cal,
couple grenades. So yeah,
we're just kidding, folks.
Something we'll investigate and flesh out in the future, and maybe bring a different spin. So yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of ways to do this and bring people to the range and bring them to another level of thinking about their gear and their level of preparedness, which ultimately is what this is all about. These people are prepared to don a plate carrier, put on a pistol, and go out and do physical labor and still accurately put rounds on a target. That's called preparation in my book. So it's pretty amazing.
Dude, I'm just excited about you in this podcast. I'm gonna come out here as much as possible, co-host it and stuff like that.
I already foresee we do a Friday night podcast. We go grab dinner. We stay here on the property because we got these amazing condos here on the property that are super comfortable. And then maybe do some shooting, grab some video, do a Saturday podcast, and kind of get a couple things in the can. There's a lot that we can do. But what I'm amazed at right now is I'm looking down at the monitor here on our recording desk, and we're 48 minutes into conversation. I've seen a couple people pop into the opening in the window. They're peeking into the studio to see what's going on in here because they've seen me coming in for the last week or so with paint and lights and moving tables, and they smell paint in the halls. And what the hell is Anthony doing in there? Yeah. And I came in here with a deer mount that's now mounted on the wall, and so they're all curious about what's happening in here.
Hopefully it'll translate. And I know you and I are both kindred spirits. I know I listen to probably, I want to say 100 hours a month of podcasting because I don't know, I might have issues, but and hopefully that will bleed over into some sort of experience with that. And I know you listen to a lot of really cool podcasts as well. And I don't know, if anything, it's cool just to be a part of it, almost like, living and being a fan of, loving and being a fan of music, and then at some point picking up an instrument.
Yeah.
And going, oh my gosh, I can be a part of this somehow.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, dude, a while back when we first met, you sent me you playing electric guitar, and I'm like, and like I said before, I was in the music industry. I did guitar and sang. I had a little band or whatever, and for like about 5 years or so, made a little bit of money at it. It was cool. And then when you sent me the video, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, everybody plays guitar a little bit. And then you started riffing and nailing stuff like note for note. And then I saw a video of you live on stage with a band, which is a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Doing something in your house along with a backtrack or something is one thing, not easy, but one thing. And then going on a live stage and then freestyling it is super sick. So how long?
Just one of my loves of my life. I think I got my first guitar when I was 12 years old. My dad bought me this cool, pawn shop guitar, and I
think
wanted.
everybody's first guitar.
It better be. It better be. My dad is a phenomenal musician. He always has been. He can still play. He's a keyboard player. He's played with some significant people in the musical industry, and he can still go. So I definitely got my musical leanings from him, and I grew up listening to a lot of classic rock, of course, and I think I saw an Eric Clapton video or something when I was 12 years old, and I said, I want to be a guitar player. And so that's how it started, and I took a couple lessons. I did, the half-hour guitar lesson bit like a lot of kids do. I learned Iron Man and then La Bamba.
Okay.
And those are
might as well be
two completely separate genres, but I learned those songs, and then I was hooked, and been in love with the instrument ever since. I've been playing ever since. I've collected tons and tons of guitars over the years.
You have some amazing guitars.
I love the way they
tones
look.
How did you get the tones out of those guitars? That's one of the hardest things. Getting electric guitar, guitar itself and playing is one thing, but getting those tones that whatever they might be, you grew up falling in love with.
Yeah, I think that's just like you could chase those tones around forever and ever, whatever genre you like, whether it be rock or blues or jazz, funk. You could go round and round and spend your whole life chasing tones.
It's a lot easier now, right? You get those tones off your freaking iPad or something.
Yeah, I got this cool little amp from a Spark amp. Everything is built in. It communicates with my iPad, and it's all digital. It's quite amazing. So really, that's how I do it. But
that doesn't make you sound good. I mean, I remember speaking of pawn shop guitars, I'm like, oh, this guitar sucks. It doesn't sound good. And then my friend picks it up and starts playing some Dave Matthews riffs and just smokes it. I'm like, okay, maybe I suck. Big shock.
I do know a lot of guitar players. Tone is in your hand. Tone is in the player's left hand. And there's something to it, the way your hand interacts with the strings, the deftness of your touch. How hard are you pressing? Are you choking the instrument? There's a lot that goes into that stuff.
Choking the instrument?
Well, we could all choke it from time to time.
So, well, like everything else,
I'm gonna hit the explicit button. We're gonna be explicit on this show.
You have to.
I don't want this to be so sterile that it's not a real conversation. If there's a couple guys
vulgar
in here
and
talking,
explicit, vulgar and versus just communicating it are definable things.
Yeah, and our spouses are going to listen to this. Maybe my parents are going to listen to this.
Well,
but that's the way it is.
Well, your lady Allie and my lady Jessica. Not that we own them. I'm just saying. I don't know how to say this without getting beat up. I'm going to sleep on the couch. I guess they have a plan to have ladies' night. They're going to have drinks, so I'm sure that won't be.
They do. They she's been pretty adamant about it. So if she wants ladies' night, she gets ladies' night. And I know that
they're going to be great.
They're going to bring in their own guests, and they're going to have their own conversations. And I'm sure there'll be some. I don't know if they're going to have champagne or some white wine or whatever.
I think
Jess
is a whiskey girl.
Great. Well, I do plan on having some whiskey in here. It's a great way to loosen up some lips and get people chatting or just kick the butterflies.
Knowing you for maybe a little less than a year, it feels like longer.
Right.
We've done so much stuff together already, but the things that you touch, they really grow as long as it's healthy, loving, and functional. They really grow. Whether it's your best to be the best version of a husband you can be, or father, and all that kind of stuff. It's really been fun to get to know you on that personal level. I'm like, man, the more I get to know you, the more layers there are to it. And every time I get to it, not perfect, you're not a perfect person, and
Nope.
God, would you be boring if you were? But it's been really an honor to be a part of you. Thanks for letting me get to know your family even better. And I have no doubt that this podcast is going to grow in an organic and a loving way, and it's going to be really fun. Whether one person watches it or a million people watch it,
That's true.
You're going to have a lot of fun with it.
I'm looking forward to it, and ditto all those same remarks right back on you and Jessica and your families together. You guys are just amazing, and I look forward to so many hours sitting here over this glowing red record button that I was so nervous to press just 55 minutes ago. But it has just turned into a great little conversation, and I think it's going to be a ton of fun. So.
Cool, man. What do you say we kill this one, and then we make a list that we can buy about 100 things off Amazon we need for our studio.
Yeah, this is the setup is slick, and maybe over time we'll introduce people to it, and they can probably see a little bit of it here on the camera systems. We have a 3-camera. I feel very spoiled. People will set their first podcast up recording into their iPhones, the speaker pod thing, and then maybe record it into GarageBand. But we have a professional desk here, 3-camera setup. We got a MacBook Pro setup ready to go. You're monitoring 3 different cameras right here inside this little viewfinder, and you're switching effortlessly and seamlessly between 3 cameras.
We'll see when you see the video. It'll be shit.
But. Yeah, and we got some big beautiful lights. And there's a few more things we're going to do to the studio to really, really tighten it down. We're going to kill some of the reverberations that are coming in off of these angled walls and tighten up the sound in here. And so this is going to be a great time. And you're right, this is going to grow very organically, and it's going to grow out of love for sharing and community. And I just can't wait.
What if you were to really boil it down, what is the biggest thing, instead of like genres and thinking about like, talking about guns, talking about this, that, and the other thing, but like really ultimately comes down to people, like what makes you tick, what's interesting about a person. A lot of times they might come in here because they're a master at their craft, but you only talk about that craft for 5 minutes, but you talk about the person behind what made them a master. And that seems to be like a universal language. So if you're going to master anything, I used to love to study Olympians. Like if I ran into a silver medalist or a gold medalist in my sport of Taekwondo, and Juan Moreno is right over in Miami, he's a multiple-time Olympic medalist, and I'm like, what book's on your nightstand?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And I get that you shared, that's definitely how you roll as well. I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent.
No,
I'm not very good at asking questions sometimes. But what would you boil it down to, what you hope to create, and hope the person listening to this podcast and probably more accurately to the ones coming up in the near future, what do you hope they take away from it?
Yeah, that has a bunch of answers.
Right.
A lot of answers. The pat answer would be, I just want you to learn something about the person that's sitting across the table. But that's really not true. I really would like you to learn something about yourself. And maybe you hear something that comes out of that person and you go, oh, isn't that interesting? Or, hey, I'm very much like that person. So in some way, I hope people, through listening to the podcast and hopefully interacting at some point in some way that we may come up with, and interacting with us here on the podcast, maybe they can peel back some of their layers to develop a better understanding about themselves, the way they think. And I think that's kind of like some of my thoughts on just even opening this thing up. Like, there has to be a purpose behind it, and this is not a comedy show necessarily. It's not an educational show necessarily. It's going to be all of those things, but I kind of hope that people learn something about themselves through the communication process that happens here, and then hopefully we can develop a way for some interaction so that we can help people continue on that journey. And I think that that's very doable through, of course, social media platforms. If they want to ask questions of us or ask questions of incoming guests, or they want to pose an awareness piece or an aha moment for them. I think aha moments are really important and big. So that's kind of like the roundabout answer.
Sounds good. Well, you can find me at the Gun channel on YouTube, or also our work at Evoke Studio.We'll for photography and videography work. And then where can they find more stuff about Anthony?
I'm not on Facebook, which is
fine.
I'm not really all that bummed about not being on Facebook. I don't miss it, to be honest with you. It's been a lot of time. I haven't been on there in years. But I am on Instagram. I try to crush the Instagram as much as possible.
Do crush the Instagram.
I have like 4 accounts on there. They're not all from me, of course.
Well, what about the Pewjitsu on Instagram? We're going to do that, or do you want to run it all through?
I think the Pewjitsu thing on Instagram is going to happen.
I think I should sign it over to you. I think before I leave here, I should sign it over to you. I'm horrible. I'll post like once a month, and
if somehow you find this podcast but aren't already following me on Instagram, I'm at. Do you have to say the at? Or is that it's understood? It's kind of implied. At Anthony _DiSarro, DISARRO.
I say DiSarro. So is it DiSarro?
Yeah. I've heard DiSarrono, Desperado, DiSarrio.
My last name's Pick, so I've heard Dick, Tick, Rick, Flick.
Yeah, but I call you Mr. Peak.
Mr. Peak. You can call me Supreme Badass. That would be great.
I'm going to have to program that in so that it'll be your call sign. But we're going to go ahead and sign out for this episode. We crushed an hour, dude. Fucking Jesus. We're like, hey, let's cut a quick 15-minute promo. Hour later, we're still freaking sitting here. So,
I'm excited about this. I think after 100 of these, we might actually be pretty good at it.
So we're going to sign out. I'm going to do my best to fade in our outro music and make this sound as pro as possible. And then we're going to do some behind-the-scenes wizardry with all these multiple camera angles and all this killer audio. So here's how it goes. The music's playing.
Is that you playing guitar?
I wish. All right, everybody. Take care.